That's all we ask for is fairness with the media. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for being so fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald. You go through this every day.
All the time.
But he loves it. He loves it. For he does it. He does it always. I never want to speak with my friend.
He's a very good player, golfer, you know.
Yeah, I know.
He went to college.
But he says you
He was-
always.
Good morning. Or evening. Or whatever. Who knows? Maybe, shit. Oops. There we go. I clicked the wrong button. Maybe you guys aren't watching in the morning. Maybe you're watching the VOD and you're watching in the evening. Who knows? It doesn't matter. I'm Gopher Papa Palpatine, and I am here for, another day in Clown World. Except my chat function in Rumble Studio is not functioning properly. Why can't I chat in Rumble Studio? Yeah, for some reason the chat won't work in Rumble Studio. I don't know why. It doesn't matter. The show must go on, as it were. But yeah, if you caught the cold open, then as you know, apparently Giorgia Maloney hates talking to the press. And Trump was being surprisingly gracious to the press. I really don't have much to say about this video. I just thought it was funny. There's Giorgia Maloney gassing up Trump. It's like, he loves it. He does it all the time. Like, it's like, Trump does like talking to the press. Even the press, whenever they're combative, he clearly enjoys, shit talking them. Which, I mean, considering, everything that they've done over the last 8 years, I would love to shit talk them as well. But yeah, the world was light on cold opens this week, so I had to come up with something, and this is what I came up with. I thought this was funny. But yeah, cameras kept rolling for a few moments after the White House meeting with President Trump, Zelensky, and European leaders officially ended, in which they were caught in a hot mic moment in a candid exchange about the press. Giorgia Maloney hates talking to the Italian press. Yeah, she's all right. She seems to be like not following through on all of the stuff that she said leading up to her election. So she doesn't seem to be as based and red-pilled as we thought she was. But still, you know, time will tell. It seems it's hopefully. Well, I mean, she's been in office for like what 2 years now, so hopefully she's not just more global homo slop. But it seems like she is. Um, as you can see, I am alone today. Liar is off at some kind of anime convention, so he's off having IRL fun with his IRL friends, and I'm just gonna go it alone. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. Let's fucking get to it, shall we? Now, this is a story from a couple years ago that Liar and I covered. We did a pretty short episode where this was the only story we talked about, and we talked about how this kid was likely a glowy. Not to say that he was a specific Fed himself, but he was in a Discord server with a Fed in it, and he might have been radicalized in this Discord server to do this thing. You know how it goes. Glowy's gonna glow. But a supermarket gunman who targeted black people once charges dropped, says grand jury was too white. Playing that Uno reverse card. Attorneys for the white supremacist gunman who killed 10 black people at a Buffalo supermarket told a judge Thursday that the federal charges against him should be dropped because there weren't enough black people and other minority groups on the grand jury that indicted him. Peyton Gendron did not attend the hearing, during which his lawyer argued that his constitutional rights to a grand jury drawn from a cross section of the community were violated. At the hearing start, U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo noted Gendron's objection to the prevalence of white people on the panel seemed a little incongruous in the hate crime cases. He did not immediately rule on the motion. I do agree that it is silly, this idea that this kid who goes to a supermarket and just guns down black people suddenly demands like he did, like it's clearly a tactic, clearly a ploy. He's upset more, like he's probably just pissed that an all white grand jury didn't find him innocent and allowed the case to move forward. Like, oh, you race traitors, and so now he's gonna, like I said, he's gonna play that Uno reverse card. Gendron could face the death penalty if convicted in the 2022 mass shooting at a top supermarket, which he targeted because of its location in a primarily black neighborhood. Those killed range in age from 32 to 86. 3 others were wounded. Gendron is already serving a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole after pleading guilty in November 2022 to multiple state charges, including murder. A trial on the pending federal hate crime and weapons counts is expected to begin next year. The Justice Department said it would seek the death penalty if Gendron is found guilty. And in my opinion, he does deserve to die for what he's done. Good morning, 13. Happy you could be here in the chat. I would reply in the chat, but Rumble Studio is being stupid. Don't know why. Normally, I could type stuff in my chat box here in Rumble Studio, and it'll go up in both Rumble and YouTube, where I'm streaming to both. I'm streaming to both simultaneously. It would go up to both, but for some reason, it's just not doing it today, and I don't know why. But yeah, I don't know. Get your shit together, Rumble. Attorney John Elmore, who represents some of the victims' relatives in lawsuits, said Gendron's lawyers are doing what they can to keep him alive. He said challenges to the makeup of juries rarely succeeds, even though he regularly sees juries lacking minorities. Quote, it is very ironic that attention to this problem is being brought out in this case where Peyton Gendron committed a racially motivated homicide, he said by phone after the hearing. But this has been a persistent problem in our courts that needs to be addressed. Gendron's lawyers argued in a court filing that black and Hispanic people and men are systemically and significantly underrepresented in the lists from which jurors are selected in the Buffalo area. To illustrate this point, the grand jury that indicted Peyton Gendron was drawn from a pool from which the approximately 1/3 of the black persons expected and 1/3 of the Hispanic Latino persons expected. Gendron's lawyers wrote, exacerbating the problem. They said, exacerbating the problem, they said, was the data sources used by a vendor to pull the list together wasn't preserved. Quote, we don't know what the vendor did, Assistant Public Defender Sonia Zoglin said. More importantly, the vendor doesn't know what he did. Statistically, the addition of 2 more black people on the 60-person grand jury panel would have balanced the panel, Villardo said. Can't that be the result? Can't that be the result of an accident? The judge asked, rather than systemic exclusion. Which obviously, I don't think anybody in Buffalo, New York, was seeking to exclude black people from the grand jury. I think it's just they picked the people, and the racial makeup was what it was. And what does it matter? I don't think like I said, this is clearly an Uno reverse card. This is him and his legal team, I think, trying to throw a wrench in the spokes. Because this kid doesn't care. Sorry, I yawned. This kid doesn't give a shit. Not really. In the opposing motion, Assistant U.S. Attorney Caitlin Higgins said that at worst, the issue constitutes a technical violation, not grounds to dismiss the indictment. The federal law governing jury selection doesn't entitle the defendant to a perfect representation, she said. Zoglin said the issue was larger than the panel that ultimately heard Gendron's case and included the exclusion of certain groups from the selection process, including inactive voters. In a written filing, the U.S. Attorney's Office said Gendron didn't prove a systemic underrepresentation, a systematic underrepresentation. God, I'm gonna have to look up what the difference between systemic and systematic is. I'm sure there's a difference. I don't think they're just synonyms. I'm sure they mean different things. Any disparities in the racial makeup were within accepted guidance, they wrote, and not caused by the selection process, which draws from voters, driver, tax, disability, and unemployment rolls. Higgins said courts have routinely rejected similar challenges. Villardo said he was unaware that any such motion has been granted in cases with similar disparities in New York's federal courts. Gendron's attorneys in an earlier filing argued that Gendron should be exempt from the death penalty because he was 18 years old at the time of the shooting, an age when the brain is still developing. The motion is pending. No, we're not gonna start playing that fucking game. He was 18 years old. He murdered 10 people. He should die for it. He should not be sitting on the taxpayer tit for the rest of his life in prison. Sorry, not sorry. Look at this kid. This fucking. Look at this little fag. You could tell this kid listened to Nick Fuentes. That's why he wanted more Hispanics on the jury, because his idol, is a Mexican. So, joking aside, I don't know if this kid is a Nick Fuentes fan. I'm memeing, but I imagine that he probably was. But anyway, like I said, we covered this when it happened. I'm sorry, Jesus Christ, I keep yawning. I apologize. And we covered this case when it first happened back in 2022, and then I don't think we've really talked about it since. So 3 years later, and we're still, I don't even remember if we covered when he was found guilty. If I don't even remember seeing the story, and if I did see it, I probably decided not to bother because obviously he was going to be guilty. He did it on camera, It's not news that a man who murdered people on camera got found guilty of murder, But yeah, hopefully this guy gets the chair, old Sparky. Which I don't think they don't really use the electric chair anymore. I think some states do, but not a lot. Yeah, moving on to slightly international news. Speaking of Mexicans, Claudia Scheinbaum continues to be cartel compromised, in my opinion. Mexico says there's no agreement with DEA for new border enforcement collaboration. And why wouldn't there be, Claudia Scheinbaum? Huh? How come? How come there's no agreement at the to help enforce the border with the DEA? Is it because you're on the take? Huh? Is it because you're compromised as fuck? I think you are. People are like a lot of people don't really. I don't think they harp on this enough. Like the fact that this Mexican president, she's not the first Mexican president who's been cartel compromised, but I think she's one of the most obviously cartel compromised. The way she runs cover for them is just ridiculous. Mexico's president denied on Tuesday that her administration had an agreement with the U.S. DEA a day after the U.S. agency announced a major new initiative to collaborate in the fight against drug cartels. President Claudia Sheinbaum was referring to Project Portero, an effort announced Monday by the DEA, which called it a flagship operation against smuggling routes that move drugs, guns, and money across the border. Quote, the DEA put out a statement yesterday saying there is an agreement with the Mexican government for an operation called Portero. Sheinbaum said during her morning news briefing, there is no agreement with the DEA, she stressed. The DEA puts out this statement based on what we don't know. We have not reached any agreement. None of the security institutions have with the DEA. I mean, it's possible that the DEA was just talking shit. They were just kind of like blowing smoke, but like I kind of it's not that I don't want to believe because of course it's the government. Of course they would lie, but it just seems like such like a silly thing for them to do, you know, especially if you could just then turn around and do this. You know what I mean? It could be, kind of a 4D chess move of them trying to make you look bad. It's possible. But I don't know. I'd say that they probably were talking to elements of your government and not directly to you, obviously. But your handlers inside the cartels, gave you the phone call and said, shut it down. So you go on national television and you shut it down because this is what you've done your entire administration, Scheinbaum, is just run cover for cartels and protect them from American justice. I mean, you don't. It doesn't even seem like your law enforcement like tries to deal with them at all. Like I'm sure they do. Like I'm sure whatever, but like it just doesn't seem like it, considering how just they operate with impunity and nothing ever seems to get done about it on the Mexican side. Yeah, 13 says it's also possible she's lying to save from being cartelled in the desert. That means she's compromised. Like even if she's not directly compromised, and I've said this before, even if she's not like happily compromised, like she's not a cartel plant, she's not like literally on the payroll, they're paying her, then she's compromised in some other way. Like they're holding someone she cares about hostage, or they're threatening somebody she cares about, or she's afraid for her own life. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how like what mechanism the cartel uses to compromise Claudia Scheinbaum. She's compromised. She can't be trusted. Scheinbaum said the only thing that was happening was a workshop in Texas attended by 4 members of Mexico's police force. Later, without addressing Scheinbaum's criticisms, the DEA said coordination with its Mexican counterparts on the training was a significant step forward in advancing and strengthening law enforcement and intelligence sharing with partners regarding an issue that has positive implications for both sides of the border. Monday's DEA statement mentioned that workshop, saying it had brought Mexican investigators to one of its intelligence centers to train with U.S. prosecutors, law enforcement, defense officials, and members of the intelligence community. Mexico's visibility, or Mexico visibly annoyed. Mexico's visibly annoyed president made her comments just days after generally positive exchanges between the two governments following another extension to ward off threatened U.S. tariffs and another shipment of 26 drug cartel figures to the United States from Mexico. Mexico had seemed to be repairing the security relationship with the U.S. after 6 years of tensions under Scheinbaum's predecessor, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, who had reined in DEA agents operating in Mexico and accused the agency of wholesale fabrication when it arrested Mexico's former defense secretary. The average intel says police are right about 50%. What do you mean by that, 13? For right about what? Scheinbaum's administration has taken a more aggressive stance toward pursuing Mexico's drug cartels and sent dozens of cartel figures sought by prosecutors to the U.S. Scheinbaum did say that members of her administration have been working for months with U.S. counterparts on a border security agreement that was practically finished. She said that agreement was based on four principles her administration had stressed for months: sovereignty, mutual trust, territorial respect, and coordination without subordination. The problem is, uh, like on the surface, sure, I agree with all four of those things. Mexico, being a sovereign state, should have sovereignty. Our two countries should have mutual trust. We should respect each other's territories, and we should coordinate without subordination. The problem is that your government is so thoroughly compromised by their cartel at all levels, we can't trust them. We can't trust you. You know, the only way to fight the cartels is to, you know, not really respect like our territorial boundaries. I mean, insofar that, like, obviously, I don't think the U.S. Well, I do actually. I do think the U.S. military should basically ignore the Mexican government and start, drone striking, uh, cartel strongholds and blowing up tunnel networks underneath the border and all these things because we don't fucking need Mexican permission to take out our enemies. But but it sucks that it's come to that. But I mean, like I said, the Mexican government has been so thoroughly compromised for so long. Like, what are we supposed to do here? And sure, like, yeah, no, we're not going to subordinate you because we shouldn't even be, like I said, we shouldn't even necessarily, we shouldn't even really be bothering coordinating with you because you're so thoroughly compromised. Like, I truly believe that. I do. I truly believe that Claudia Scheinbaum is compromised. The thing that seemed, if you haven't watched the TV show The Bridge, it's a good watch and also shows some realism about how a lot of U.S. Mexico border towns. Yeah, I had an uncle who did some work in El Paso, and he said it was fucking nuts there. Um, he said he saw the wall, like he saw the wall that is put up along along the U.S. Mexico border in El Paso, and he says it's crazy. Uh, it's also interesting, that when the wall got put up in El Paso, like illegal border crossings and a bunch of other crime from Mexico, like dropped like a lot precipitously. You know, Scheinbaum did say that members of her administration had been working for months with U.S. counterparts on border security agreement that was practically finished. She said that agreement was based on four principles. I already read that. I apologize. The thing that seemed to have her bristling Tuesday was the DEA sending out a statement without proper coordination. Now, of course, AP is going to side with her and assume she's a goodest girl who never did nothing wrong, and automatically assume that the Trump DEA is the ones blowing smoke and lying and all these things. Scheinbaum said she asked the DEA to respect Mexico. I have no respect for Mexico. I'd like to have respect for Mexico as our southern border neighbor and our ally, but what's there to respect at this point? I like Mexican people. Mexican people are fine people. We got no problem with them. Um, but your country is a bit of a shithole, and your government sucks and is thoroughly compromised by cartels. To follow agreed upon protocols for such announcements and emphasize that Mexico only signs agreements with the U.S. government, not with individual agencies. The DEA statement included a comment from agency administrator Terry Cole, who was recently tapped to lead the Trump administration takeover the Washington, D.C. police. Quote, Project Patero and this new training program show how we will fight by planning and operating side by side with our Mexican partners and by bringing the full strength of the U.S. government to bear, Cole said in the Monday statement. It shows a lot of how relations between the different municipalities interact, dramatized, but U.S. Mexico has always worked together. Yeah, and you know, I would prefer it to be that way, but again, I don't just based on everything I've read, everything I see, I have little faith in Mexico's ability to properly police itself. Now, I'm not saying we need to occupy Mexico and nation build there. I would prefer that not be the case, but something's got to give. Eventually, we're going to have to do something where it's like, look, we don't care what Claudia Sheinbaum or the Mexican president has to say. We're going in there and we're going to take out these cartels, whether you like it or not. And most of the cartels are, along the border. So we could take out most of them. We don't even have to go more than like a couple hundred miles into Mexico. Yeah, no, I don't trust this bitch. I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. And I have weak little arms. So, uh I couldn't throw her very far. Oh, and other international news. The UK Office of Communications has allegedly issued a notice to 4chan with an intention to impose a £20,000 fine plus daily penalties. 4chan's lawyer has dropped a response. And this is just funny because who the fuck sues 4chan? You're not going to get anything. Like there's nothing to it. It's a free website. I think there's advertisers on 4chan. Like I don't know like how Null makes money, but or wait, Null isn't 4chan, is he? Is Null 4chan? Leader of 4chan. I might be thinking of someone different. Um Oh no, Null is someone else. I'm getting my internet personalities mixed up. No, I was thinking of Christopher Poole, Moot. So I was thinking of. I think Null um runs Kiwi Farms. Uh yeah, yep. Null was I mixed it up. Yeah, I was mixing up Moot and Null. Null is Kiwi Farms. Moot is 4chan. Also, I just read and I'd forgotten all about this because I haven't read about this in a long time. But Moot doesn't even own 4chan anymore. He hasn't owned 4chan since like 2015. Um, we're going to have to help someone worthy take office. Until then, U.S. people with money will just take advantage of the country, both citizens and companies. Yeah, no, I've read about. I've even covered some of the stuff that's going on in Mexico City with like Americans moving to Mexico City because it's so much cheaper and it's jacking up the prices in Mexico City and kind of pricing the locals out of their own capital. And I agree, that's lame. Like Americans, you should probably stay in America. Stop passport broing. Um, like I understand the drive. Like shit gets rough in the United States, and you hear that like I could keep like I work from home or I have a remote job or I'm a day trader and I make six figures a year. I make or not even six figures a year. I make like 80, 90,000 a year. And you think to yourself, I could take that money. I could barely survive living in in whatever. Let's say you live in fucking California. I could barely survive on 90K a year. So I'm gonna go live in Mexico City. No, I'm gonna go live in Bogota. I'm gonna go live in Manila. I'm gonna go live in Shanghai. I'm gonna go live in whatever. Like yeah, because you were that and making 80, 90,000 dollars a year, $100,000 a year takes you a lot farther, in those places. Sure, but it's probably still not a good thing, especially because like depending upon where you live, if you have a remote job, if like for instance, let's use the scenario that you have a remote job or you're a day trader or something, and you're making 80, 90, 100 grand a year. You don't even have to leave the country. You could move to places in the Midwest where you can live way better than you could live on the coast. Hell, there are coastal places where it's pretty cheap. There's places in like Florida where like you don't live in Miami, you don't live in Orlando, you don't live in Tampa Bay. You don't live in, in the Keys. You don't live in the major parts, like the touristy parts. But there are like you could live in Florida where you could be easily live within driving distance of a few of these places. Like you could go to Central Florida right now, buy property cheap, a big stretch of land, right? Relatively cheap. I'm sure prices in Florida have gone up across the board because of whatever. But the Midwest is where I tell people to go. Seriously, the Midwest, it's like land is cheap, cost of living is low, relatively. Relative, yeah, everything was, inflation, whatnot. Everything's more expensive. You get my point. And you don't even have to leave the country. My point is that if you have a remote job or you're a day trader or something, and you do well, you do super well financially, or relatively well financially, you're living thoroughly above the poverty line. You don't have to live on the coast. You can live, and you don't have to leave the country. You can just live in America and still find a place where you can take your money and make it go way further. So, but anyway, this is 4chan's lawyer. A statement regarding Ofcom's reported provisional notice to 4chan community support. Um Byrne and Storm PC and Coleman Law PC represent 4chan Community Support LLC. According to press reports, the UK Office of Communications, Ofcom, has issued a provisional notice under the Online Safety Act alleging a contravention by 4chan and indicating an intention to impose a penalty of £20,000 plus daily penalties thereafter. 4chan is a United States company incorporated in Delaware with no establishment, assets, or operations in the United Kingdom. Any attempt to impose or enforce a penalty against 4chan will be resisted in U.S. federal court. American businesses do not surrender their First Amendment rights because a foreign bureaucrat sends them an email. Under settled principles of U.S. law, American courts will not enforce foreign penal fines or censorship codes. If necessary, we will seek appropriate relief in U.S. federal court to confirm these principles. The United States federal authorities have been briefed on this matter. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was reportedly warned by the White House to cease targeting Americans with UK censorship codes, according to reporting on the Telegram on July 30th. Despite these warnings, Ofcom continues its illegal campaign of harassment against American technology firms. A political solution to this matter is urgently required, and that solution must come from the highest levels of American government. We call on the Trump administration to invoke all diplomatic and legal levers available to the United States to protect American companies from extraterritorial censorship mandates. Our client reserves all rights. And this is just, I can't read the whole statement because this is just a screen cap. But still, 4chan is not going to take this lying down, and Keir Starmer could suck a dick. I like the Brits. I do like British people. I like British culture and British history. I am a descendant of that culture, not only because I'm American and we are a former British colony, but because I'm primarily Scot and North Irish by descent. So I consider myself like not ethnic, like ethnic's not the right term. Racially, I guess you would say. My ancestors, and thus I am of the islands. I'm very much an American. I'm not like, I wouldn't be one of those people who would go to like Scotland and then, say some dumb shit about how like, whatever. Like I would have the appropriate amount of reverence for the place. But like, I still like, I could kind of, it's one of the things I've said about like my understanding of say like American Jews, like even American Jews who don't have passports. Because if you actually look at the numbers, like most of them don't. Something like the last time I looked at this, I'd have to look at it again. But according to like census data, like something like 60 or 70% of American Jews don't have passports and have never left the country. Right, but I could still understand why an American Jew who doesn't have a passport, who's never left the United States, never been to Israel, maybe probably doesn't even necessarily have family in Israel, still sees Israel and feels some type of way about it because they see it as, first of all, the ancestral homeland of their ethnic group, but then also um, the current homeland of their ethnic group. They see other people who they identify with, and they see what's going on with them, and then they feel some type of way about it because it's still their people. And I feel the same way about Scotland and Ireland and all the British islands because it's like, yeah, I'm an American. I'm an American first. I don't call myself British American because I'm not, or Scottish American because I'm not. I'm just an American. But I'm thoroughly, as I've said before, I still look very, very, very much like a Brit. Like you could drop me in the streets of Glasgow today, and I would fit right in with the locals. Um, like visually, like I don't think you could point me out of a crowd, like put me in a group photo with a bunch of Scottish dudes, and I don't think you could point to me and say that's the American. um but like I still identify with them as like the ancestral homeland of my people, so I do feel some type of way about it, and I don't like seeing what it's become because I really, really, really do like the place. And like I said, I hate what it's become. I hate what it's becoming, what it's slowly been becoming my entire life. Not, just not great, not great. And then like, hopefully the next general election. Like I know he's kind of like the lesser of three evils at this point. The Tory, the Labour, and then you've got Reform. So Nigel Farage, but hopefully Farage, for all of his faults, is probably still better than whoever the Tories are going to throw out there, and he's probably still better. That he's certainly going to be better than Keir Starmer. So hopefully they can kind of course correct a little bit. We'll see what happens. So, one of my favorite feelings in the world is Schadenfreude. Now, Schadenfreude is defined. It's a German word, but I can't. I don't think. I don't. I'm not sure if Germans came up with the concept or if they just used a German word to describe it. But essentially, it is a feeling of pleasure one gets from seeing, uh, like people who you have a friend enemy distinction with, people who you don't like, who you consider your enemies, whatever. Whenever you see bad things happen to them. Now, you can find some definitions that say it's a feeling of pleasure that you get when you see bad things happen to anybody. I've seen it defined both ways. I tend to prefer the first one because I don't like to see, because like I like to see bad outcomes for people I hate, but I don't like to see bad outcomes for people I'm neutral on or that I actually like. So I don't. So yeah, but I love Schadenfreude. It feels very good. I'm literally the meme of the guy rubbing his cheeks. Feels good, man. Destiny has got caught. He's had chat logs leak that confirms he was sexting with a 17-year-old girl. I'm here for it. And his son, the autistic Nazi sympathizer, Nathan, has been one of the people who's throwing him under the bus. And it is so fucking funny to me because I just, like, I don't have words to accurately describe how much I hate Destiny. Like, I do. Like, I truly hate the man. And I wish the worst upon him. I do. I try to be gracious at things like this. I try not to wish bad things on people. It's bad for, it's bad for your mental health, but like I can't help it when it comes to him. I hate him. It's a deep and unrelenting hatred that I feel in like the pit of my soul. I feel it in my bones. And anytime anything even remotely bad happens to him, I laugh. When his wife left him, I laughed. When his sex tapes got leaked, I laughed. When Pixie, who I also hate, by the way, fucking commie, fucking shit lib, a slutty little shit lib. I got nothing good to say about her. But whenever she decided to sue him for, sharing out her revenge porn, I laughed. So like I hope Pixie takes him for everything he's worth. I hope he does time for this. Like I hope a criminal investigation comes in. I hope they find just tons and tons, because like, and this is just tons of stuff. I hope he does time for this. I hope that between the Pixie lawsuit takes his money, and I hope that this cause and puts him in prison. I would love nothing more than to watch his entire life be destroyed, because I think he deserves it. I think he's a garbage human being, and I hate the fact that we breathe the same air. Yeah, here are like pictures of people sharing out the chat logs. He this is primarily him talking to a girl named Rose, and in the chat logs, Rose was, at the time when a lot of these chat logs that have been leaked out, at the time they were said, she was underage. She was 17 years old. So now I'm sure that there can be something out there where Destiny was like, well, we both live in Florida, because he lived in Florida. So it's just like, we both live in Florida. I don't know what the age of consent in Florida is. I think it's 18. Like, some states in the union, it's like 16 and 17. So whatever. I'm sure he might be able to weasel his way out of it with age of consent laws, depending upon what they are in Florida or what they are wherever she lives. If she doesn't live in Florida, if she lives in a state where it's 18, then hopefully he's up shit's creek without a paddle. But there's a video down here that shows some of the chat logs.
Why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies.
Do you ever get scared about people finding out about your kinks?
Shot or whatever the fuck.
If someone leaked my foot cum kink, I think it would be annoying, yeah. Because he has a foot cum fetish, apparently.
Okay, because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi.
I was very surprised when I found out. I never imagined you'd be into that stuff.
The entire world would be better off if these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again. It's exclusively bad stuff that happens. Conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets...
Like, I want to hit him. Like, I want to punch him in the face. I do not advocate for violence, and you shouldn't ever be violent with anybody unless, it's in defense of yourself. But, like I want to hit him. Like, I want to, like, just reach over and slap the taste of dick out of his mouth.
It's shot or whatever the fuck, okay? Because they had no problem making Candace Owens, Tucker...
I've covered this before, but I hate the comparison that, like, we made fun of Paul Pelosi. It's like, okay, nobody made fun of Paul Pelosi getting his head smashed in with a hammer. Okay, we had a chuckle about the absurdity of the situation. The fact that the cops showed up in the middle of the night, both guys answered the door together, not wearing any pants. The guy who was in Paul Pelosi's house was a drug dealer. Like, yeah, sure, we cracked a few jokes, but like, whatever. Like, nobody was making fun of the fact that Paul Pelosi, got hit with a fucking hammer. Nobody was making fun of that. And also over here on the right, yeah, we like to joke, but we generally don't make fun of people's deaths. Sure, we made fun of, like, Biden when he fell off his bicycle, but like, if Biden had been assassinated, like, nobody would be making fun of him. Like, there are people like Destiny on the right wing who will joke about anything. And it's ridiculous. Yeah, here he is talking to Rose. Fuck, I really want to eat a load off of your souls too. So yeah, he wants to, like, lick cum off of this girl's feet because he's a disgusting degenerate. There's somebody's got a... Oh yeah, here it is. Bro, you literally say in the clip she's 15. What the fuck? Have you seen the 15-year-olds they're putting out today? Now, he's saying, like, this is a joke, dog. But, like, he's not joking. And if you go, it's easy to find this stuff. I've known about this stuff for years, by the way. I've been saying for years that Destiny's a pedo. I'm saying it for years because there's chat logs that leaked a long time ago from him when he was still living in California, where he was talking about how he had nudes of a 15-year-old, or lewds. I think it was lewds. I think it was like her in like a skimpy bikini or something like that. And how badly he wanted to fuck this 15-year-old girl. And he was showing these pictures to friends in his chat logs. Like, these chat logs exist. I saw them. And a lot of DGG simps will tell me that they're fake, but they're not fake. They're not fake. I have known for years, and I've been saying for years, this man is a fucking predator. He's a monster. He's a disgusting human being. After the Corey Compatore thing, after the Trump assassination, there's a reason why I tried like hell to get him to fight me in mutual combat. Again, I wasn't he was in no danger of me showing up outside of his apartment complex in Florida, wherever the hell he lives, Miami, wherever he lives, and just trying to fight him in the street. No, I was you can pick the gym that we do it at. If you want a few weeks to train, I'm down for that. We can fucking make content out of this or not. I really don't care either way. I'll book my own travel. I just literally want, it's you can pick the person to referee this thing if you want a guy in the cage with us. We'll put on gloves and headgear. We can do this completely above board and by the book, but please, if you are so comfortable with violence being, perpetrated against, right-wing people, then I would like to see how comfortable you are whenever violence is perpetrated against you. And of course, he ignored me. Now, he ignored me because I'm a fucking nobody, which is fair. It's not like he was scared of me. He doesn't know me, which is fine. But still, I would manhandle this guy. And I'm not even that good of a fighter. I'm kind of shit at fighting, but I could still beat the fuck out of Destiny. And I would love to. I'd love to get in a cage with him and just manhandle the shit out of him. Just choke him out. That would be great. Yeah, here he is making fun of the kids that died in the flood. Maybe the kids weren't fit for camping near a river if they couldn't swim. Because us making a few jokes about Paul Pelosi, standing there with no pants on next to a naked drug dealer, is the same thing as him joking about kids drowning during a natural disaster. Total morally equivalent things. Yep. Absolutely disgusting human being. And like I said, I'm here for it. And I'm glad his son is turning on him. I think it's hilarious. I'm not a particularly big fan of Nathan either. I think it's funny to watch his son turn on his father so thoroughly, but I also think that I'm not a fan of autistic Nazi sympathizers. I think Nathan is as big of a cunt as his dad. It's just he's just too young. He hasn't had as much time to do anything truly degenerate yet. But I imagine Nathan will become a degenerate just like his dad. The autistic Nazi sympathizer into tranny pipeline is a phenomenon that needs to be studied. The sheer number of trans Nazis is mind blowing. So yeah, let's get on to some. This was kind of good news. I mean, it's bad because we got a fucking predator out here doing bad things, but it's good that it's coming to light. What's bad is illegals driving trucks and getting people killed. And what's worse is knowing that despite the fact that, according to the U.S. law, foreign truck drivers have to be, have to meet a certain level of English, a certain level of English comprehension before they're issued visas. This guy failed the test and was still issued his driver's license. The system failed us, and it failed the entire country, but it especially failed the 3 people who died as a result of this illegal being on our roads driving an 18-wheel truck. Illegal migrant truck driver in deadly Florida crash failed English road sign test despite getting licenses from 2 sanctuary states. The Indian immigrant truck driver accused of killing 3 people in a crash when he made an illegal U-turn across a Florida highway badly flunked English fluency and road sign tests following the smash up the U.S. Department of Transportation revealed. Harjinder Singh answered just 2 of the 12 questions correctly when being tested for English language proficiency by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration after the April 12th crash. And when asked to read road signs and their meanings, Singh could only identify one out of the 4 signs shown to him, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced on Tuesday. See, it's crazy that this crash happened in April, but we're only just now learning about it. Despite these failures, Singh, who's believed to have entered the U.S. illegally in 2018, has been granted commercial driver's licenses in California and Washington state. This crash, quote, this crash was a preventable tragedy directly caused by reckless decisions and compounded by despicable failures, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said in a statement. Like I said, our government failed us. California failed us. Washington failed us. Everyone involved in this failed us. You know, I'm not one of these people who thinks like every Indian who migrated to the United States is a detriment to the country, because I don't believe that. But guys like this, they're not helping the cause. They're making me look stupid for being even like lukewarm on the idea. You know, hashtag not all. You know, I went to high school with a couple Indian kids. They were perfectly nice. They were born here, spoke fluent American English. I'm pretty sure their families had them speaking English as their first language rather than, you know, Indian or whatever the language they speak in India is, Hindi, I think. Um, uh, their families were good people. The kids were good people. Everybody's, yeah, and I've said I've been very vocal about how much of a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy I am, and I still am. So it's like I'm not, but like again, it makes me look bad. It makes any of us who try to be, you know, not completely, black pilled on all immigration from everywhere ever in history, like it makes us look incredibly stupid and naive whenever shit like this happens. Quote, non-enforcement and radical immigration policies have turned the trucking industry into a lawless frontier, resulting in an unqualified foreign drivers improperly acquiring licenses to operate 40-ton vehicles. It's funny that this thing is because I was at a gas station yesterday, and there was a foreign truck driver there who was waiting in line, and this motherfucker could barely speak English, and he was rude as fuck. Not like maliciously rude. He wasn't like being mean to people. It's just he had no concept of personal space. He kept trying to cut in line. Like he was being like he it's just people talk about how rude Americans are. It's like, Eurotrash, they often talk about how shitty and rude Americans are, American tourists when they come to Europe, and but then like every time I run into like Eurotrash, here in the United States, they're usually rude as fuck. And again, not even maliciously rude. They just, wait in line, motherfucker. It's not your turn. Also, how the fuck are you driving trucks on an American street when you can't speak English? Like, one thing I do 100% agree with is the idea that before you're issued a visa, you should be conversational in English. Like, obviously, not everybody. If you're a temporary tourist visa, like you're just going to be here for like a week or 2 or 3, however long, just to like see the sights. It's like, I want to go to Grand Canyon. Like, okay, fine, whatever. You don't have to be super conversational in English. But like, if you're coming to the United States seeking employment, not just in trucking, any employment anywhere. If you're coming to the United States to work in the kitchen of your cousin's Chinese restaurant, you should be conversational in English. I'm not asking for fluency. I'm asking for conversational, which is like the level below fluency. Like I speak English fluently, terribly, but technically fluently. So I'm not even asking for that. Just can you read the fucking language? Do you know what the road signs mean? I don't even think that's that big of an ask. You know what I mean? If I was ever to go live in a country that wasn't the United States, I would do my best to learn as much of the language as I possibly could. I also decided that if it ever came a time where I would live in a country other than the United States, I would specifically select for countries that accommodated native English speakers. You know, there's I can't remember if it's Denmark or Holland. I can't remember, one of the northern European countries they like almost all the road signs, or I don't even think it's almost all. I think literally all the it's the like English is like the second most commonly spoken language in the country. Almost everybody in the country speaks English. A lot, almost all, or if not almost all, then all the road signs are in English. Like, so it would be like I would go live there if I had to live anywhere. But no, if I had to live anywhere other than the United States, I would probably go live in Britain. As much shit as I was just talking about it a minute ago, the birthplace of the English language, where I could function at least somewhat properly because I'm in a country where they speak a language I understand. You know, if I ever went to Japan, I would literally hire an interpreter. Or I would use some kind of like interpretation app, like some kind of app that gave me like. I would also try to learn as many phrases as I could, so that I could at least I didn't have to rely on like an app or an interpreter to ask like where the fucking bathroom is. You know what I mean? Like, I always like cringe at the idea that I would be one of those like American tourists that would go to like Japan and act like an idiot. Like, because I hate those people. It's like, no, if I ever went to Japan, I would do my best to not be rude. Like, I understand like the Japanese mentality towards like rudeness and, you know, how you're supposed to act in certain situations, and I've read a lot about it, and because I don't want to be that kind of tourist, you know. I was like, yeah, I want to go do touristy shit. I want to ride the bullet train. I want to see the tower, and you know the tower in Tokyo, their little radio tower. It looks like the Eiffel Tower, and I want to go see the the built to scale Gundam, and I want to go see Hinoji Temple, and I want to go to Kyoto. Like, I want to do all the touristy shit. I want to go to Tsushima, but I would try to be as not rude about it as possible. It just seems like a lot of the foreigners that come to America, for all the criticisms they have about American tourists, they never want to give us the same kind of like treatment. They want to come here and they want to be rude as fuck, and they don't want to learn the language, and they want to take American jobs, and they want to get Americans killed. Not want to, but you know what I mean. Singh is accused of sparking the deadly accident after he attempted an illegal U-turn through a highway cut through marked official use only, with his massive tractor trailer blocking the 4-lane highway. A minivan was left without a chance to brake or turn and hurtled at full speed into the trailer. I've seen the video. It's rough. It's rough to watch. All 3 people in the van were killed, while footage from inside Singh's cab show him apparently unmoved by the carnage unfolding outside. Federal law has mandated for decades that CDL holders must be able to speak English sufficiently enough to converse with public and read road signs, with Duffy signing an order in May to bolster those laws. And in California, CDL tests are administered only in English, while Washington allows tests to be taken in English, Spanish, Russian, and Serbian Croatian. No, no, and no. English only. Fuck off. Exactly how Singh was able to obtain a license under those parameters remains unclear, but the DOT said it intended to find out. We will use every tool at our disposal to hold these states and bad actors accountable. President Trump and I will restore safety to our roads, Duffy said. Singh was nearly deported in 2018 after he was detained crossing the border, but was released on a $5,000 bond in January 2019, telling U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services that he feared returning to India. Police sources previously told the Post. So, he was claiming to be a refugee. Of course. The cunt was illegal. He was an illegal. He snuck in illegally. He lied to gain asylum. He shouldn't have been here in the first place. He has been in immigration processing ever since. Under the first Trump administration, he was denied a work permit, but was granted one in 2021 under the Biden presidency. Shocking absolutely no one. Details which sparked a social media spat between California Governor Gavin Newsom's office and the Department of Homeland Security. Singh received his Washington CDL in 2023 and his California license in 2024, the DOT said. He was arrested in California Saturday by U.S. Marshals on 3 counts of vehicular homicide. So, yeah, deport him now. Send his bitch ass back to India. I mean, he deserves to do time for what he's done, but, like, I don't want him rotting in American prison. Just send his ass back to India. Hopefully, we can work something out with the Indian government where he would be put in prison once he got there. But, whatever. Yeah, I'm not happy about this. This is not a good thing. However, sometimes tragedies can lead to victories. Unfortunately, it sucks that 3 people had to die for us to get here, but the Trump admin pauses all worker visas for commercial truck drivers. Progress. It's unfortunate that it had to come to this for us to get something like this, but we got to take the small victories when we get them. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced on Thursday that the Trump administration would pause all issuance of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. This follows a crash in Florida where a commercial truck driver using licenses obtained from California and Washington State made an illegal left-hand turn off the highway and killed 3 people. He was charged with vehicular homicide. And Marco Rubio says on X, effective immediately, we are pausing all issuance of worker visas for commercial truck drivers. This increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor-trailer trucks on U.S. roads is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihoods of American truckers. Yes and yes. Based, Marco Rubio. We need to really do something about this shit. The H-1B system just needs to go. It just needs to go. We have O-1 visas for, aliens with extraordinary talent. So that can stay in place. If you really are an extraordinarily talented foreigner and you want to immigrate to the United States for work, get an O-1 visa. The H-1B system has to go because it's giving us situations like this. But even then, this guy wasn't even an H-1B. That's the shitty thing. He was illegal. He snuck in illegally and pleaded for asylum and seems to have been at least granted it, if not officially, then tacitly by being allowed to just, I was like, oh, you're afraid to return to India? Well, fine. You can just stay here in the United States. Have fun, CDL Life reported in December 2024 that the Biden administration's Department of Homeland Security has opened nearly 65,000 H-2B visas for the fiscal year, which includes visas for truckers. That number about doubles the total number of that kind of visa for the fiscal period that ends in September 2025. These employers across the country would suffer greatly without H-2B workers. Authorizing these supplemental visas helps U.S. employers fill those positions, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said in a statement at the time. If they didn't have cheap foreign labor to rely on, they would have to raise wages and, in order to convince Americans to take these jobs, which is a good thing. Quote, it helps fuel our economy and reduces irregular migration while also providing a safe and lawful pathway to the United States for non-citizens who are prepared to work. There are Americans who are prepared to work if you are willing to pay them a decent wage. The Trump administration has taken a different approach, tightening the border and the visa system since taking office in January 2024. It was January 2025, post-millennial. God, editors, fix your shit. President Trump has also demanded that truckers operating in the U.S. speak English. Those who cannot, he said, would not be permitted to drive commercially in the U.S. Good. We should probably deport all of them, to be honest. Seriously, any current foreign truck driver who, even if he's here totally legally, came in with his H-1B or his H-2B, and he came here, but you sit him down, you give him an English language test, and if he doesn't pass it with 100%, get him out. Get him out. Sorry, no. Revoke your H-1B status, and you're going home to your home country. The Department of Transportation has launched an investigation into the deadly Florida crash that took 3 lives. In an English proficiency test, the driver of the truck was found to not be proficient and was unable to read many highway signs. Quote, if states had followed the rules, the driver would never have been behind the wheel and 3 precious lives would still be with us. The crash was a preventable tragedy directly caused by reckless decision and compounded by despicable failures. I read that in the last article. Yep, so No, like hopefully the Trump administration sticks to this for the remainder of the administration for the next 3 years. Hopefully, we stop issuing visas to truck driving truck. Hopefully, stop issuing visas to foreign truck drivers, like even ones that speak English. At this point, we need to just draw a line in the sand to say no. We need to start prioritizing our own citizens first. Because I imagine there are people out there who could learn to drive trucks or who already have CDLs who would probably come back, you know, if they were incentivized to do so. For instance, get rid of all the fucking foreigners and pay them a decent wage. Now, this tragedy also seems to have led to something really good. All 55 million active immigrant visas are under review, according to the Trump admin. Now, if you truly believe that 55 million people are going to have their visas revoked and be deported, I have a bridge to sell you. That's not going to happen. Cool as that would be, it's not going to happen. Also, we have to take into consideration that there are people here who were born in foreign countries who do speak English, who took the time to learn how to become conversational in English, who are paying their taxes, doing everything by the book, who are not hurting anybody, who are just here, they're working, and I don't think they should necessarily be punished. But you have to understand, 55 million people we have 300, what is it, 340 million people in the United States, 350 million people. That's a large percentage. You know what I mean? That's like, hold on. If it's 350 million people, 55 million people is like 1/7 of the entire U.S. population are foreign born, currently here on visas. We should consider that maybe it's time to get rid of a lot of those. Like, because there are a lot of them who aren't even doing like important jobs. Like, I'm sorry, but like, assuming you're not an illegal working as a housekeeper at a fucking hotel, why do you need to do that here in the United States? Go do it somewhere else. There's probably an American who would be willing to do that job. The U.S. Department of State said Thursday that all immigrants in the country on visas were under continual review. Officials were on the lookout for anything that could render an immigrant deportable. The department told the Associated Press, potentially affecting up to 55 million people. I really do hope. I hope this really is the final step that we needed to get to what we really want, which is mass deportations. We've been getting over 1 million people have self-deported. So we're talking about illegals and legal migrants alike have willingly left the country on their own since Trump took office. Then I can't remember the exact numbers, but we're in six figures, possibly up to seven figures. I can't remember the exact numbers, but of people who have been forcibly deported. We are deporting people, but we really do want the mass deportations that we all talked about. We really want to see it. It really is time. Nobody's necessarily like a lot of people. A lot of lefties really are accusing this of being racial. It's not racial. There are tons of non-white Americans who are born here and who are not going to get deported. They have birthright citizenship. And I used to be pro birthright citizenship. Now I'd like to see it overturned because it's been so thoroughly abused. Yeah. So, we review all available information as part of our vetting, including law enforcement and immigration records or any other information that comes to light after visa insurance indicating a potential ineligibility. Yeah, I really do hope we get millions of deportations based off this. And even if it's just like, oh, you filed something incorrectly. Sorry. Should have been more vigilant about your paperwork. Get the fuck out. Sorry. But I have kids who were born here. Well, I guess they can stay. Oh, they're minors and they can't stay without you and they don't have any family. Is your wife American? Or is well, I'm sure if they're married to Americans, they'll probably get to stay because of green cards. But, it was like, oh, my kids were born here, but you and your wife weren't? Well, then I guess, oh, too bad. I guess you have to take your anchor babies with you. Sorry, not sorry. Unfortunately, they are citizens, and whenever they're adults, they can probably come back. But you have to go. Sorry, get the fuck out. The administration of President Donald Trump has repeatedly made clear it is taking a tough stance on immigration and border security, with the State Department playing a key role in determining eligibility for visa applications from overseas. It also monitors temporarily or ongoing temporary visas, such as student and cultural exchange programs. The State Department's assertion that all visa holders are subject to continual vetting is not necessarily new information, with various instances of visas being revoked in recent months, particularly those of foreign students. Good, good. That's another thing I'm kind of like, yeah, great American schools. Like, people want to come to America and be educated in America, and then they want to go back to their countries and make their countries better. But a lot of them don't. A lot of them just come here and stay here, and then they never try to gain citizenship. They just come here and stay here and get good jobs, and they they send money back to their home country, or they end up overstaying their visas and they stay illegally. They take up jobs that should be going to American citizens first. You know, so yeah, foreign students, we could probably do with less of those too. The federal government as a whole is taking an increasingly tougher approach to legal immigration, with the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Service recently announcing its agents would be on the lookout for anti-Americanism from benefits applications going forward. That's another thing I agree with. Listen, if you come here as a non-citizen and you want to be, and but then all you do is talk shit about the country. All you do is like, I don't care about. Yes, you have the First Amendment right to say anything you want. You're not an American citizen, which means you're not protected by the First Amendment. You have freedom of speech. We agree. That is a natural right that you have. The First Amendment is a legal protection for the right to free, for, the natural right to free speech. You, as a non-citizen, are not protected by the First Amendment. If you come here to my country seeking a place to live, but then you come here and all you want to do is talk shit about the country, say how much you hate it, say how much you love your own country, constantly advocate and talk for changing the culture, flooding it with, foreign migrants, try to replace the white people who founded and built the country, then yeah, I think that's grounds for deportation. You're not a citizen. You're not protected by the First Amendment. You can't come here and politically agitate and talk shit about the country that was good enough to take you in. No other country on earth would allow itself to be treated this way. Imagine if you tried to immigrate to Japan, which Japan, you'll never become a Japanese citizen if you're not Japanese. You can become a permanent resident. You can marry a Japanese woman, get permanent residency papers. But like, even if you went to Japan, learned how to speak Japanese fluently, married a Japanese woman, had 2 Japanese children, paid taxes, did everything by the book, you would never become a citizen of the country. We are one of the only, and if you fucked up even a little bit, they would deport your ass. Like, we are one of the only countries in the world where you can come here, treat the country like shit, bring your entire fucking family with you, talk shit, and then we just let you do anything you want regardless, because we're supposed to be like, oh, we're the beacon of freedom in the world. We are, but we also need to have standards about the way you're going to act. Do you want to come here and be a part of this? You need to act like you do. If you don't act like you do, then you can get the fuck out. I am one of 350 million Americans who has never left the country. And the only country I've ever even was actively ever planning to visit was Australia, another former British colony where English is the primary spoken language. It's another descendant of the British Empire, just like my country is. Like, I plan to go to a place with a great deal of cultural overlap. And while I was there, I was going to do my best to not be a cunt. At one point, like early on in the podcast, Liar and I used to joke about if we ever made that Ethan Klein money, that I would consider relocating to Australia and doing it permanently. Like becoming like trying to get like some kind of permanent resident status so that Liar and I could work together in person. It's just a spitball idea, like what would we do if this thing blows up and all these things. And like, I wouldn't be a cunt. Like, I wouldn't show up to Australia and I would try like talk shit about how terrible Australia is. Like, I would voice my political opinions, but it would be done in good taste. Like, I would, like, it's yeah, if you're going to be anti-American, but you're trying to live in America, then no, you can get the fuck out. As such, any such expressions could see visa extensions, green cards, and naturalizations denied. The State Department's message on Thursday appeared to reflect a similar statement, with officials confirming to Newsweek that the agency was looking for any indicators of ineligibility, such as visa overstays, threats to public safety, and criminal activity. Visa overstays should be deported automatically. Like, oh, you overstayed your visa? Get the fuck out. With several million legal immigrants in the U.S. at any one time, it remained to be seen how such ongoing vetting could be achieved. A State Department spokesperson told Newsweek that officials were reviewing all available information as part of the vetting processes, including law enforcement and immigration records. Since January, the spokesperson said the department had revoked twice as many visas as during the same period last year. Good. I'm Grumpy Cat. Good. USCIS spokesman Matt Tragesser, in a news release earlier this week, said, quote, America's benefits should not be given to those who despise the country and promote anti-American ideologies. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is committed to implementing these policies and procedures that root out anti-Americanism and supporting the enforcement of rigorous screening and vetting measures to the fullest extent possible. So yeah, a lot of Muslims hopefully are going to get the boot. That's what I'm really hoping for. Get a lot of these Muslims out. Of all groups in the world, they're the ones I want out of the country the most. All Muslims, and I don't care. Fucking Eastern European Muslims, white Muslims, get them the fuck out. I would be if someone told me that, as much as I like Hamzat Chimaev, if somebody told me that, like, well, the way things are now, Hamzat Chimaev can never fight in the United States again, I'd be like, sorry, buddy, but I'm gonna have to take one for the team on this. you know. And I trust me, I wouldn't cry at all if I found out like Khabib couldn't fight in America anymore, which he's retired now, but whatever, you get my point. Like, oh no, some Dagestani Muslim cunt who thinks he's better than everyone and talks shit about Americans all the time. Like, he's not allowed to fight in the country anymore. Oh. The language from the State Department on Thursday indicated a renewed effort to check up on immigrants within the U.S., but it was not immediately clear how such check-ins would take place. Put ICE on the task. They seem to be good at finding illegals. Well, in this case, these people aren't necessarily illegals. They're here on visas, so they are, by definition, here legally. They're just not citizens. So yeah, that's good news, because we're in white pills to end. So it's going to be a bit of a short one. What are we at? We're only at an hour 25. Oh, well, we got through this quicker than I anticipated I would. So yeah, Trump vows to try banning mail-in voting before the 2026 midterm elections. Can he do it? I don't know, CBS News. Can he do it? Oh, look at fucking Zelensky. Zelensky came to the White House again, and look, he actually wore a suit this time. Like, I think he was so thoroughly shamed by J.D. Vance, and he's all like, I better put on suit. I don't want to get yelled at by Vance again. Like, get fucked, Vladimir. President Trump promised Monday to work to end mail-in voting and said work is already underway on an executive order to ban it before the 2026 midterm elections, though the Constitution does not give him this power. We, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible to get rid of mail-in ballots, he said during an Oval Office meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots. Good! Mail-in voting is the biggest form of voter fraud, is the biggest source of voter fraud in the country, in my opinion. Quote, mail-in ballots are corrupt, the president said. He suggested the method is susceptible to voter fraud, claiming in California it's so corrupt where some people get 5, 6, 7 ballots delivered to them. He has often insisted mail-in ballots can be tampered with or enable people to vote multiple times. Yep, I remember getting into an argument with a shit lib I used to work with who swore to God, like he got angry about it too. That the mail-in ballots aren't that big a deal. It's not really going to happen because you have to specifically ask for one before they send you one. And literally, me and every other person who was within earshot of the conversation, all of us were all like, "I got one in the mail. I didn't ask for one." It's just like, "So did I. So did I. So did I." Like we all of us. There was like 4 people in the room, 5 people in the room, including him, and all 4 of us were just all like, "Dude, we all got mail-in ballots sent to us. We didn't even ask for." And he just got kind of embarrassed and started muttering to himself under his throat, talking shit, because that's what he liked to do, because he was a cunt, because he was a sheet lib. But soon after the 2020 election, Deborah Cleaver, founder and CEO of Vote America, a nonpartisan voter information site, dismissed the idea of widespread voter fraud as a myth. Yeah, okay, 2020. Yeah, 2020, it was a myth that, yeah, whatever, bitch. The outgoing ballots have a barcode, and then when you send your ballot in, you put it in a return envelope, and that barcode has to match the barcode that was sent out in order for the ballot to be counted. Yeah, you just say it's like, yeah, well, these barcodes have to. Okay, so you're telling me that no precinct ever ignored that and counted the votes anyway? It's never happened. After the election, the director of the National Cybersecurity Agency, Christopher Krebs, called the 2020 vote the most secure in American history. Nobody believes that. In 2024, when Mr. Trump won the presidential election, the U.S. Census Bureau said nearly a third of ballots nationwide were cast by mail. The White House told CBS News in a statement that Democrats had eroded faith in our elections with policies like undermining our unfettered mail-in voting. President Trump wants to secure America's elections and protect the vote, restoring the integrity of our elections by requiring voter ID, ensuring no illegal ballots are cast, and preventing cheating through lax and incompetent voting laws in states like California and New York, White House spokesperson Harrison Field said Monday night. In a social media post earlier in the day, the president said of an impending order that would help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. He claimed that the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes, and that they must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. But Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution says it's the states that have the authority to regulate elections, not the president, and this may be changed only by Congress. Mr. Trump also claimed we are now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting, and argued you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in, and it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it. But the Democrats won, and it's the only way they can get elected. In fact, more than 30 countries allow voting by mail for some or all voters, including according to the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, an intergovernmental advocacy group based in Sweden, Canada, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, Germany, and Denmark are among them. Yeah, Trump has a bad habit of doing stuff like that. We're the only country in the world that does this. I'm like, well, that's not entirely true. But you want to know what some of these European countries have in common is that their votes always seem to be weird, and the same people always seem to win over and over and over and over and over again. Huh. Interesting how that works. I can't even remember which European country it was. There was recently a big controversy because the right wing party ended up winning the initial round of voting, so they had to fucking fuck them over to ensure that they didn't win. I can't remember who it was, but which country it was, but I remember reading about that. It was somewhere in middle or Eastern Europe, or it wasn't France. I can't remember where, but in the U.S., mail-in voting is widespread. 36 states offer some form of no-excuse mail-in voting, including 8 states that conduct elections entirely by mail, while the rest require a documented reason, such as illness or military service, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. The pandemic gave mail voting a huge boost in the 2020 elections. About 43% of voters cast their ballot by mail that year, according to a report by the Election Assistance Commission. In 2024, mail voting dropped off, representing just 30% of the total votes cast, about 46.8 million. The commission said that last year's numbers still exceeded pre-pandemic levels. Yeah, hopefully it falls off even more because mail-in voting really is just a complete fraud. It is, in my opinion, anyway. And the president agrees with me, which means I'm right. The topic of mail-in voting came up during Mr. Trump's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin last Friday, too. After the two met Friday, the president told Fox News' Sean Hannity that Vladimir Putin, smart guy, said, "You can't have an honest election with mail-in voting," he said. "There is not a country in the world that uses it now." So even Putin is saying that mail-in voting is bad. But Putin also will say pretty much anything. So you really can't, take what he says with any real kind of, you know, weight behind it. Mr. Trump said the two talked about the 2020 election. That Putin told him, "You won that election by so much, and that's mail voting." How Biden got it. Audits and investigations, including some conducted by Trump supporters and Republican secretaries of state, showed no evidence that the 2020 election results were inaccurate. Yeah, okay. Liars, rhinos. David Becker, executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research, pointed out in a statement to CBS News that mail in voting has been around since the Civil War and said getting rid of mail voting is an incredibly bad idea that would make our elections much less secure and vulnerable to interference. How? How would it be less secure if people had to go? If the only way you could vote is you have to show up to the polls in person and show valid ID? How would that make it less secure? Instead of you write down you fill out your ballot and then you just, you know, send it in the mail. Like, it could be intercepted in any way. It could be destroyed. It could be tampered with. Like, what are you talking about? That's just like, intuitively, you can intuit that that is a bullshit statement. Requiring states to eliminate or replace the voting machines that confirm the election of this president just 15 months before a midterm election and less than a year before primaries is not possible and would result in chaos, said Becker, who's also, no, it wouldn't result in chaos. No more mail in ballots. Just stop it, which means nobody gets any mail in ballots. And then in November of 20, November next year, when it's the midterms, when you show up, you have to go to your local polling place, you have to provide ID, and you have to vote there. That wouldn't be chaotic. That wouldn't cause, what chaos would that cause? Oh, fewer people would get to vote. That's a good thing. Fewer people should vote. Honestly, if I had my way, like uh, entire swaths of the country would not be allowed to vote. Net tax, as far as I'm concerned, the only people who should be allowed to vote are fucking net taxpayers. They should be the only people allowed to vote. Simple as. You know, you put it like you do net taxpayer because like that becomes so like anybody on welfare, they don't get to vote. People. Let's say you're one of those people who doesn't like the idea of women voting. Well, guess what? Most women don't pay taxes because they're on some form of social welfare or for any number of reasons. But here's the thing: yes, the women who are net taxpayers do still get to vote, and that's okay. But the point is that if you don't like the idea of most women voting, well, most women don't pay taxes. So most women couldn't get to vote. Most foreigners don't pay taxes. So most foreigners wouldn't get to vote. Most people on welfare don't pay taxes. So the welfare queens wouldn't get to vote. People on food stamps wouldn't get to vote. Pretty much the only people who'd get to vote, like I said, are people who are like landowners, business owners, and people who don't own businesses or land, but who don't suck off the government tit and only ever pay taxes. So they're not a drain on the system. Not a lot of people would be able to vote under that system, and that would be a good thing. If you let people on welfare vote, they're going to vote to keep their welfare. Always. And that's been consistent everywhere that's been studied. requiring states to eliminate or replace the voting. I already read that part. White House spokesperson Harrison Fields told CBS News a statement on Monday night that President Trump wants to secure American elections and protect the vote, restoring the integrity of our election by requiring voter ID, ensuring no illegal ballots are cast, and preventing cheating through lax and incompetent voting laws like California and New York. I think I read that earlier or already. Democrats have eroded faith in our elections with reckless laws such as unfettered mail-in voting, illegally changing laws to benefit their voters, and slow walking the counting of votes far past election day, Fields said. So yeah, I really do hope Trump comes through on this. The Trump administration, I really hope they get mail-in ballots completely just wiped out. We don't need those. They're bad. Final piece of good news. This is good news for Trump. This doesn't necessarily mean anything to the average American, but I think it's good because it shows like, a kind of like nature is healing moment sort of thing, right? Trump's $500 million civil fraud fine is overturned by the New York appeals court. So that bullshit, fraud case that he caught in New York, his $500 million, $500 million fine, he doesn't have to pay it now because it was obviously bullshit. Excuse me. A New York State appeals court on Thursday tossed out a massive monetary fine for civil business fraud imposed on President Donald Trump, his company, and other defendants related to a lawsuit by State Attorney General Letitia James. It's Letitia, but Letitia is funnier. The appeals court said the eye-popping penalty, which rose to more than $500 million since it was imposed in early 2024, violates the U.S. Constitution's Eighth Amendment, which prohibits excessive fines. Where was this? How come an appeals court didn't do the same thing for Alex Jones when he was fined like $1 billion in civil court? I mean, I guess because it wasn't a fine, it was a civil, it was a civil court, award for damages, I guess, or whatever the fuck they said it was. But still, it did seem excessive. But the court is the same ruling, but the court in the same ruling upheld Manhattan Supreme Court Judge Arthur Engoron's finding that Trump and others committed business fraud by overstating the value of real estate assets owned by the Trump Organization to boost Trump's purported net worth. Those actions helped the company get better loan terms and financial benefits. That's obviously bullshit. Like, them trying to claim that Mar-a-Lago is not worth what Trump claims it's worth. Mar-a-Lago is one of the most beautiful pieces of property on earth. Like, are you kidding me? Easily worth what Trump claims it's worth. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but yeah. I'd love to visit Mar-a-Lago. I think that place would be gorgeous. I don't even want to meet the president necessarily. I would just be happy to fucking just like tour it, it's just like hop in the golf cart. We'll just drive you around Mar-a-Lago. This is where Trump plays golf. Here's Trump's private golf course and, all that shit. The ruling Thursday also upheld non-monetary sanctions imposed by Engoron on the defendants, saying they were well-crafted to curb defendants' business culture. The decision was issued by a 5-judge panel of the First Judicial Department of the New York Supreme Court's Appellate Division. James said she will ask the state's highest court to overturn the decision related to the fine. Yes, because she is out for blood. The ruling, which came 11 months after oral arguments in the case, was split several ways, with one judge, David Friedman, saying he would have dismissed James's lawsuit outright. Based David Friedman. In a concurring opinion on the fine being voided, Judge Peter Moulton wrote, while harm certainly occurred, it was not the cataclysmic harm that can justify a nearly $500 million award to the state. James did not carry her initial burden of establishing the rough total of the profits casually connected to the defendant's violations, Moulton wrote. Indeed, the calculation of the disgorgement in this case was far from a reasonable approximation, Moulton wrote. Trump crowed about the ruling on in a post on Truth Social. Total victory in a fake news. Or in a fake news, it's a fake news because in a fake New York State Attorney General Letitia James case. I greatly respect the fact that the that the court had the courage to throw out this unlawful and disgraceful decision that was hurting businesses all throughout New York State, the president said. Quote, others were afraid to do business there. The amount, including interest and penalties, was over $550 million. It was a political witch hunt in a business sense, and the likes of which no one has ever seen. Eric Trump, the president's son and one of the defendants in the lawsuit, in a social media post wrote, total victory in the sham New York Attorney General case. After 5 years of hell, justice prevailed. Eric Trump, with his brother Donald Trump Jr., operates the Trump Organization. Both Donald Trump Jr. and the company were defendants as well. So the boys, managed to get out of it, which is good. Well, of course, Letitia James she can go to a higher court and have this court's ruling overturned also. James, in her statement saying she would ask the New York Court of Appeals to restore the fine, also said the First Department today affirmed the well-supported finding of the trial court. Donald Trump, his company, and 2 of his children are liable for fraud. The court upheld the injunction relief we won, limiting Donald Trump and the Trump Organization officers' ability to do business in New York, James said. It should not be lost to history. Yet another court has ruled that the president violated the law and that our case has merit. The trial judge, Engoron, in February 2024, ordered Trump to pay around $454 million in total penalties after holding him liable for business fraud. Engoron found that Trump's statements of financial condition signed between 2014 and 2021 overvalued his assets from between $812 million to $2.2 billion. With interest, the penalties rose on Trump and other defendants in the case that has grown to more than $500 million. Hopefully, Letitia, when she goes up to the higher court upholds this ruling and, basically tells her to get fucked. That, you have no legal leg to stand on to charge a man, this much money, especially when the case was so blatantly a political witch hunt, or at least it was in my opinion. But yeah, that's the show. Got through the news this week. No liar today because he was at a con. Hopefully he had fun. I'm going to have fun. I bought the new RoboCop Unfinished Business, and it's been fun so far. It's the RoboCop Rogue City and then Rogue City Unfinished Business are both very good. I highly recommend them. I skipped video game streaming this week altogether. Burnt out from my IRL job, but I'll be coming back to it Tuesday. I'm going to start a playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077. I'll be playing as a Nomad. It's going to be fun, so be sure to check that out. All my links are down below and subbed everywhere. Make sure you like the stream or the VOD, however you end up watching it. Follow me on X. I post stuff on there occasionally. I mostly just shit talk people, but, whatever. Anyway, it was fun, as always. Sometimes, get in the chat. It's good to have someone to banter with. But you guys have a good weekend.